Greetings. Welcome to my video on digital project workflow. It's a very long, nearly a 2-hour video. I have broken out a table of contents here so you could jump around to the pieces that you need. Basically, I'm taking files from AutoCAD, moving them through Photoshop, and finally into InDesign. So there are pieces relevant here to making presentation boards and portfolios as well. So it starts off discussing the very important topic of project folder and file organization. Very, very practical reasons that about linking, inserting images and linking images in CAD and InDesign. It really stresses why it's so important that our files are organized, that the names don't change and they don't change location as well. After that, I'll get into CAD. Bringing an image into CAD, talking about tracing it and scaling it. From there, we'll print from CAD. We'll insert graphic scales and talk about displaying dashed lines properly. In Photoshop, we'll take that PDF from CAD. We'll move it into a Photoshop file, and then after it's done being worked on, we move them into PNG files. We'll talk about resolution and transparent images in Photoshop. Then we move those PNG files finally into InDesign, where we start documents, we insert images, we talk about the importance of linking them, and then we resize and arrange images. And then finally at the end, I talk a little bit about rendered floor plans and some great YouTube resources for you. Okay, so very long, but you could of course jump around and repeat parts that you need. Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with the very important topic of project folder and file organization. There are two very important reasons why project files need to be well organized. One simply is professionalism. If you're working in a firm or if you're in the classroom, your colleagues, your instructors, your supervisors definitely are going to expect you to have a well organized set of files. It's just professionally inappropriate for someone to be staring over your shoulder, waiting for you to show them something, and you're opening up a drive and it's just completely unorganized. The projects aren't separated, or if the projects, perhaps the projects are separated properly, but when we open up the folders, things are not properly named, and we just have numerous files that are called Untitled. It just reflects very, very poorly in terms of professionalism. So that's important reason number one. Important reason number two has to do with linking files, and this works. We do this in the classroom, and it definitely happens a lot in professional situations. So we're staring at my desktop here, and I have I've set up a folder for kind of to simulate a project that we do in a presentation class of mine, where we choose an existing building from another designer, and we study it. We draw plans of it, make models of it, and we just really delve into the project to get to know it. We call it the case study. So this is how I recommend that my students set up their folders. So here's the project called case study, and then within it, and this, depending on the project, of course, depending on what type of work you're going to be doing with the project, you would name your subfolders appropriately. So for this one, we're going to have CAD files. We're going to finish with an InDesign presentation board. We're going to take photos and plans off of online sources, and they'll be kept here. And then we'll also have Photoshop files. So this is what it could look like. So to start with discussing the importance of linking files, I'm going to give a demonstration with CAD in particular. So to start the case study, we often go to ArcDaily or Detail Online. Very nice websites. They show off really, really interesting buildings. And for our purposes, most importantly, they provide plans and sections. That's what we're most interested in. Photographs are great, but we need plans and sections. So I found a pretty interesting looking office building here. And I'm just going to really kind of take this from the top. So let's jump in and look at some images. I'm just going to flip through these quickly, and I'm just looking for some plans. So pretty cool looking building, very nice interior. moving along, very dramatic. And now we're getting to a site plan, and here we see a plan, floor plan. So I'm going to save this image, and I'm going to take it right to my desktop, and I will save it here. Okay, now I can put this away. And now I will open up CAD. So, I'm just going to, I have already have a file open, and I'm just going to let it do double duty for this demonstration. So now I'm going to get that floor plan, and I'm going to bring it in. So I'm going to go to Insert and Attach. And I will go to my desktop, and here is my floor plan. And I'll bring it in, drop it, and there it is. Very good. Okay, now I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to close it for demonstration purposes. Good. Okay, now, again, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to take this plan and move it into my project case study. There it is, just appeared. Now I will, let's take it, let's put it right where it's actually supposed to live, with my online photos and plans. Now I come back to CAD and I open it up, and lo and behold, it is gone. I have hidden successfully hidden the file, the floor plan from CAD, and it can no longer find it. That is because it is linked. It is an external reference. XR is the command for external reference. And we bring it up, and any images that I have connected or linked to this file, it could be images, JPEGs like the one I did. They could also be other CAD plans. In professionals, it's very, very common to be putting floor plans into section files. So this is a super, super important task, this kind of organization, for that reason. All right, so it is hidden, so it cannot find it. And here we could see that it used to live on my desktop, and now it is gone. And then there it is, and it is not found. It is, again, that is the location. If we come down here and we click on saved path, it's kind of annoying how you can't see these three dots until you click on it, save path, and then we could come right here and show it again where or show it for the first time where this thing really lives. So where it lives is with my online photos and plans, and now I can double click on this and set up the path again, and there it just popped into being. The big moral of the story is that you should never move these files, and you should never change their names. You should have your folders organized properly from the start, and then you will not have this problem. And this is especially true for students that are working in a classroom situation where they often save things to their desktop, like this thing, like I just saved this floor plan to my desktop, and then tomorrow I come back and I'm on a different computer in the classroom, or I'm in the lab or somewhere else, and this thing is sitting on my desktop and my CAD file simply can't find it. So that all speaks of the importance of file organization and not moving things. Don't rename them. Don't move them around. Just have get yourself a jump drive, flash drive that's big enough to hold everything you need, and keep things where they're going to live. Okay, so that's the importance of that. Now, I want to talk about a couple of CAD issues just very quickly. I want to talk about a couple related specifically to my presentation class and kind of tracing these images. So I'm going to start with the tricky issue of scaling these. So we see that my office building is so much smaller than my house over here, so we know something's wrong. First, I'm just going to show you quickly how to change these cursors. This tiny little white cursor kind of disappears. So I like to see it a little bigger. So I'm going to go to my application button. I'm going to go to options, colors, and here you could change the colors. Very important for your not straining your eyes. I'm going to go to crosshairs, and I like a nice bright red. I'm going to apply and close it, and then I'm going to max out the size of that crosshair, apply it, and now I can see a little better. Okay. So scaling these things. So yeah, it is a little blurry. This is a little more blurry than most actually, but for our purposes we can make do. So this building has a lot of wild angles. This one looks pretty pretty horizontal, relatively speaking. So what we want to do is scale this image up to close to reality. We're not going to get it perfect. We're just not capable of doing that. We don't have the information, but we do know that this should be about a 3-foot door. So you know, it's I guess when you put it on a final presentation board, it might not really matter if it's truly if it was truly drawn initially to proper scale. But it's a very important habit to get into, and it'll help us kind of check dimensions as we go and better understand this building. So right now I'm just going to type in DLI for dimension linear, and we're going to see as I zoom in that this door, I have to zoom out, is about 6 inches. So that is not what it should be. We need about a 3-foot door. So I'm going to go to L for line. I'm going to start on the one side of the door. I'm just going to show it what direction I want this line to move. I'm going to type in 36, enter, and let's just select that line. Let's go home and put it on a layer where we could see it. Let's get up here to the top. I have a couple. Let's just put it on the 0 layer and change the color of it, actually. It might just be easiest. Okay. So here is our 6-inch door, and this is our 3-foot line. So we want, I'm going to draw another line here for reference right here. So that's what I figure. So this is about the size of the door. That's about 6 inches. And I'll just change this color one more time so you can see it. So we want this 6-inch door to become 3 feet, to extend the entire length of that line. So the command is scale. So SC, scale, enter, select the object that we want to scale, enter. And when you get into these commands that have multiple steps, it's very, very important to keep your eye on the command line down here. This is what's going to clue you in as to what's next. So right now we want to specify the base point. So the base point is where this image or the object, whatever you're scaling, is going to grow. It's going to grow from this point. So sometimes an object or an image, like maybe this is in the correct location, and we just wanted to scale kind of away from that. So this is the correct location for this door. This is the corner that I want to keep in the right place. So I'm going to select that base point, and now it's asking me a scale factor. Do you want to shrink this by 25%? Do you want to scale it up by 200%? I don't know what the answer to that question is. I mean, I guess I could do the math. It's 6 inches. I want it to become 36, so it's going to grow 6 times. That's kind of the scale factor. I'm not going to do any math or think about it that way. I'm just going to go right to reference. And this is why I drew these lines. So now for reference, it wants 3 points. It wants to see the initial point here. I'm going to click once. I'm going to show it the second point of the existing door. Click for a second time, and now the third point, I'm going to show it where I want that second point to live, which is all the way out here. And I'm going to click for the third point, and it just went super blurry on us, but if we zoom out a little bit, we could see now that that door is the correct dimension, or has grown to match my 3-foot line. So now our overall image has grown significantly. It is much larger than my house, as it should be. Now let's just move that over. So now we have a, relatively speaking, within arm's length, I would say, scaled plan to work with. Okay, so an important step. Okay, I'm going to jump back into this PowerPoint real quick, and I just want a couple other things. This is just quick few minutes just to talk about these. This is a little, you've all been through basic CAD drafting, but I just want to point out a couple of my favorite commands when it comes to tracing and accuracy. So we definitely need to get our O snap on and our ortho. Ortho comes on and off. Snaps typically stay on. So the key command for snaps is F3 and ortho is F8. They also live down here at the bottom. Here they are. So this is our ortho command. So that comes on and off. So again, ortho is on. So I am living in this 90-degree rectilinear world. If I take ortho off, I can move about freely. I typically keep it on until I need it off for some particular reason. And then the other one that stays on a fair amount unless it becomes problematic if you're snapping to things you don't want to snap to. But my big important point, at least at the school, when we fire up CAD, by default, for some reason, the midpoint is always off and perpendicular is off. They're on mine right now, but I don't know how you could draft without midpoints and perpendicular being on. So I always, once I get started, I check these out. So they are on, and that is a good thing. All right. So if I have let's just erase that line. So if I have a line, for instance, and then I'm coming in with another line to it, I want to see perpendicular. I want to see that little green box appearing. I want to see the word appearing, and I know that I'm coming in with a true perpendicular relationship. Otherwise, I'm not sure how people do it without it, to be honest. Because there are, if we come back here, there are some of these things can be very, very problematic, and I'm going to talk about a few other commands explaining why I don't like some of these snaps, for instance, like nearest. That could be very problematic. That's not a real relationship. It's not a real geometric relationship. So snapping to the nearest could be causing problems, definitely. And in practice, when we start copying and pasting things, if you make one slightly crooked line and then you copy and paste it numerous times, I've seen files and buildings just really kind of damaged from that. So perpendicular, moral of the story again. Okay, so we check those out, and let's see what else I wanted to mention. So now into tracing. X lines, my favorite way to draw a line, and then offset, trimming, and filleting. I'm going to do all that quickly here. So when we are drawing or tracing plans, what's most important, in my opinion, is consistency. We do not want to vary our wall lengths. Okay, so I'm stuck on this layer. I'm going to move right up to 0, and I'm going to. My rule of thumb in life is never to change things here, but I'm just going to make an exception to that rule. Well, let's not make an exception. Let's just go to floor. So these are all the layers that we typically do not use in the school situation. We kind of do it by line weights, which is not professional practice, but I'm going to go with a wall full height. Where are we? Full height. There we are, a wall full. Okay, so I'll be using magenta lines. All right, so I'm going to zoom into my walls so I see windows. So I'd have to look at the photographs more closely before I would attack this project, but I'm just going to kind of go for it anyway. I'm going to think that this is the outside wall right here, and perhaps this is a window. So X lines, XL, enter. An X line. So these are lines that we could draw horizontally, vertically, or on an angle. And what I like about them, I'm just going to go quick, H, and so this is a horizontal line. It's not allowing me to zoom out any further right now, but this line goes on forever, which is great. And it is also perfectly straight, which is also a great thing. So now I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to drop that line. So again, this is pretty fuzzy. It's not a exact science, but I'm going to drop that line right there. And now, and then I could actually just hit the space bar, and now I'm back in that command, and I could jump right into a vertical line, for instance. So now let me just do this outside line right here. I'm going to drop that right there. Okay. And then my next favorite command is offset, or one of my favorite commands when I'm doing this task in particular. O is for offset. So I don't know how thick this wall is, and to be honest, I really don't care at this point. I know that my image is, roughly scaled properly, so I'm just going to show it the dimension. I'm not even going to worry about trying to memorize dimensions and keep track of them. So O is for offset, and I could punch in a distance. If I knew that I wanted it to be 8 inches, I could do that, but I'm just going to do it by eye for our purposes. I'm just going to click 1, and now I'm going to come over. There's my perpendicular snap, and I just showed it the distance that I want it. And now I could click on the line, and I could show it which direction I want it to move in, south or north, and the answer is north. And then I could come right over here and do the same for this guy. So looks decent. It's no, actually these lines were not correct. I was following the window over there, so I'm just going to M for move. Just bring these right over here. Now let's see. Now they're looking a little more respectable. So I got my west wall running north and south, and my south wall running east and west, and then trim, TR, enter. So now I'm on enter. Let's see what happens. If I click once on this, nothing happens. So one more time, trim. The way that I trim is quick, and I just select everybody, enter, and then I kind of just zoom out and I cut my lines, and they come right into here. And then being that first selection was basically showing what the cutting plane is. I'm just going to escape and show you one more time. So trim, enter, and now my first selection, enter. This is the cutting plane or the scissors, and then I cut again, like so. Trim, select the scissor, enter, cut. Okay, and I just want to get back to one more wall, and then I'm going to move on from here. So my X line again, H for horizontal. Let's work on this north wall now. So I'm going to come right in here and drop that line. Now let's pretend that I went off. Typically when I draw a plan like this, I would do all my exterior walls first, and I'd move to interiors, etc. But let's just change it up. For instance, let's say that I didn't follow my good advice, and I'm coming in and doing an interior wall at this point. Inevitably, you do jump around. So X line, V is for vertical. I'm going to drop a line right there. Again, O is for offset. And I'm going to click 1 here, show it the distance, and then bring it back. So this is my interior wall, a different dimension from the exterior wall, which is very common. So let's pretend that I was drafting a bunch of interior walls, and now I finally get back up to my north wall, and I do not have the second line placed already. So what I want to do is show it the dimension. I want to show it how far that line should offset. So again, O is for offset. I don't know what this dimension is, and I don't really need to know, fortunately. All I have to do is show it. So I'm going to click once, click twice. That is the width of my exterior wall. One more click here, and I have just duplicated it. Again, completely unaware of what the dimension is. Trim, select, cut, 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 and cut. And then, most important, so when I go into panning and I hold down the wheel and I move it, the image fortunately just disappears and I can see. So when this project is over, again, I probably won't know exactly what those dimensions are. I should know. I should do a little research and try to figure it out. But for drafting purposes, I don't know, and in my opinion, that's okay for this type of exercise. Big picture, what I want when this is all over is consistency. I want the exterior walls all to be the same, and I want the interior walls all to be the same as well. Okay? I'm going to do one more, actually, because I know there are a couple more commands I quickly wanted to show you. So X line, V for vertical. I'm going to drop that right there. And then O for offset, and it retains the last number, which down here I was saying I don't care, I don't know, but it's 1 foot 10 and 3/16. If I were really drafting construction documents or something, I wouldn't have some crazy 3/16 in there. But again, for our purposes here, I don't really need to know. They're very thick walls, suffice to say. So that is the distance. I know that I was on an exterior wall last, so I'm just going to confirm by hitting enter, and then I could offset. And now I have my northeast corner almost done. I'm going to jump back to PowerPoint and So we got through X-line, we got through offset, trimming we did, fillet. So to fillet is a term or a steel construction. When you join two pieces, you fillet them. So I'm going to do that command here. So trimming is nice, but I also like to have fillet occasionally. So fillet, F enter, and then I click 1, and then I click 2. Enter to get back into the command, click 1, and click 2. What I really like about fillet when it works in conjunction with X lines is that it produces a true 90-degree angle. That's very, very important. Again, using those snaps and potentially snapping to the quote-unquote nearest, whatever that means, ending up with crooked lines. So X lines that are truly horizontal, truly vertical, in conjunction with the fillet, and you're going to get truly 90-degree angles. Very important for proper drafting. I'm just going to show you really quickly here. X line, enter, and we also have A for angle. So I'm going to, this is not, it's more than a little, it's very fuzzy. I'm going to click once, and I have my ortho. My ortho is on, which is the F8 command. On my computer, going into F8 mid-line causes a problem, so I have to get out of it. X line, enter, A for angle, click once. Why is my ortho not off? Oh, I hit the, let's see, there we go, better. Okay. I hit the snap, not the ortho. So I got one point there, and now I'm going to zoom out. Let's see, this is a little fuzzy, but let's just try it for click, and now I have an angled line. And then I can drop that. O for offset, enter, because we're on the same dimension, and now I have a angle line. And just one more, and then I definitely will move on. X line, enter, A for angle, and now let's do this wall up here. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to turn my snaps back on. Click once. And now, again, just to reiterate the importance of perpendicular. So even though my lines are on these wild angles, I set my first ones by eye, obviously, but thereafter, I'm not going to do it by eye. These walls need to have a perpendicular relationship. So even though I'm starting here by eye, and it's, again, some wild angle that I don't know and don't really want to know at this point, I'm just coming over here, finding perpendicular, and then I could drop the line. Escape, O for offset, enter, and there we go. Trim, I know everybody's nice and square, clean, clean, zoom in and clean. And then we have a nice, whatever angle it's at, I don't know, but they are 90 degrees to each other, which is most important. Okay? All right, we're almost done with CAD here. So let's see. One more, yes, divide and PD mode. This is another good one that is necessary for a lot of our applications. This is good for window mullions. It's good for, I'm gonna get away from this image actually. It's good for stairs, window mullions. So let's just pretend that I have let's bring on our ortho right here. Let's say that this is a window. I don't know what dimension it is. And let's say if I'm looking at that fuzzy floor plan and I know that this window has three panes of glass. Therefore, it has 4 frames. It has a frame here, a frame at the end, and 2 more midsection. So this thing has to be divided by 3. What I don't want, again, consistency for drafting is always very important. This is a very big window relative to our plan, but that's okay. So what I want to do, I don't want to do this by eye, by looking, if I'm tracing this floor plan over here, I want to do it accurately. So PD mode, so you'll see right here again, there are 2. There's divide, D-I-V-E-D, divided, divide, typo, divide, and PD mode. So PD mode is just a display issue. I'm just going to type PD mode, and it is at 0. If I recall correctly, we need to have it at 100. I'll just leave it at 0 just to make a point. And then what I'm going to do is divide this line for our 3 pieces of glass. div, enter, pick my window, and 3 is the number of segments that I want, enter. So it appears that nothing happened. If I select in here, however, we found 2 little nodes. That's what our points. I call them nodes. I guess they're points there, but here in snap land, they are nodes. And if you want to snap to them, you have to come here and turn on your snap. I guess over here they're technically called points. But we can't see them. I just knew they were there. Getting back to PD mode, enter. We turn 0 to 100. I don't know why 0 is the default. I guess maybe you want to have those things there but not see them. Enter, and now we could see them. So these could be our pieces of where our framing lives, for instance. Okay. And this is also helpful with stairs, for instance. So line up. So let's say we have a 12-foot floor-to-floor height. Enter. So there's our 12 feet. So my window was immense. Let's just confirm that this is 12. Being that we're doing stairs, we do want to be somewhat accurate. So I have a 12. So this is our first floor down here. This is our second floor. And what I would do, if I were designing stairs, for instance, I would just pull up my calculator. Here's my calculator. Come on, calculator. And here you are. So I have a 12-foot floor-to-floor height, and that is equal to 144 inches. Each step, each tread, not tread, sorry, tread is the horizontal. Each riser is ideally close to 7 inches. So if I take that 144 and I divide it by 7, and I say equal, that is not correct. That is not correct. Something just went wrong there. 144 inches divided by 7 inches. Sorry. 140. Come on, clear it out. 144 inches divided by 7 inches gives us 20 and a half steps, 20 and a half risers. Now, we are not going to have 20 and a half. We're going to have 20 or we're going to have 21. So let's see what 21 does for us. So if we divide this line by 21 steps, we could see, well, it's created a perfect set of risers for us, as close to 7 inches as we could get. So then I could just line from the bottom to the center of that node, being that that snap is on. That's the height of my step. And then ideally I have an 11-inch tread. So this is my near 7. It is 6 7/8, very close to 7. And then I have my 11-foot tread. And then I could CO copy this and build an accurate staircase like so. And I'm not going to go up to 21 feet. But again, when you get into your sections, this is how we create accuracy. Okay? Very important. Accuracy and consistency. So again, when we get to a section, you might not know that it's 12 feet. So you will look at that section and do it by eye. You'll count the steps and then divide accordingly. So you might not have the math on your hand that I have, but you will be doing it kind of by eye. Okay? And that is about it. Let's see. Yeah, this is just something I always like to reiterate for students in particular. Is the Control-C, it's just copying and pasting basically. And the addition of the shift, the addition of the use of shift. So Control-C and Control-V are copy and paste pretty much as we know it. When we add shift within command, it does two great things. One, it adds a base point when we're doing the copying, and then when we're doing the pasting, it actually finishes it as a block, which is nice. I'm just going to do a quick demonstration of this. And this becomes very important, so I'm just going to draw something, anything. So here's a strange object. So Control C, and it's just asking me, pick my objects, pick them, enter, Control V. And I have duplicated my object. So here we could see that I have 7 lines, and here again I have 7 individual lines. If I and just to go back, this is very helpful when it comes to copying blocks. So we have blocks of furniture, plumbing blocks, and some of our blocks get very intricate. They are made up of many different pieces. A simple sink sometimes can be made up of 50 lines, if you're getting into kind of complex curves. So again, going back here to my shift, when I bring in complicated blocks, now I'm holding my shift, Control Shift C, it nicely asks for a base point this time. Last time it didn't ask me. So when I'm copying something and I'm thinking ahead and I want to bring in that sink, and I don't know, let's pretend I know that when that sink gets dropped, it's going to be tucked into a right corner in the bathroom. So therefore, I'm going to pick the right corner of the block to pick it up from. Click, select Objects, Enter. And now Control Shift V drops it, and now I am tied to that right corner. So for instance, let's pretend that maybe I had already placed that node, and then I could bring it right to where I want it. So there's no fumbling around with it afterwards. It just drops. So again, I have to have the foresight to know, am I going to be snapping this to a right corner, a left corner, a midpoint, or what? And then I drop it right there. Very nice. And when I select it, it is no longer 7 lines. It is a block. So some of those sinks, again, 50 different lines. You don't want to, or inevitably, not inevitably, but occasionally, maybe we have to rotate pieces 90 degrees. If this thing is made up of many different lines, there's just a lot more room for error, for little pieces getting left behind. And I could always come back and explode, and then I could get back in line. So it's not permanent. It's just for moving things around, inserting things. It's helpful in that regard. Okay, so that's the AutoCAD segment of this presentation. And next I am going to move into moving CAD files into Photoshop. Okay, now that we've completed our drawing in CAD, we want to get it into Photoshop. There is one last step I want to do in CAD, however. So I'm going to just get rid of all of this. And this is the project I'm going to pretend that I've been working on. This is a little house I designed. So I'm just going to go back to PowerPoint quickly. And the one thing that I want to do is add a graphic scale to this. Okay, so I've been kind of, through the CAD segment, I was talking about the kind of downplaying the importance of the dimensions. And that's definitely not very true. A big picture, when our CAD files move from CAD to Photoshop to InDesign, we don't typically, as in practice, keep them perfectly scaled. It's very difficult to do. Printing from CAD and keeping something perfectly scaled, especially for construction drawings, is imperative and easy. When we move through Adobe, it becomes tricky to keep it perfectly scaled, if not almost impossible. So what we like to do as designers is add a graphic scale. And I'm going to just hit Tab and move over to this. So these are graphic scales. And these are they're just of various sizes, but they're all the correct dimensions. So we can see that one's 16 feet. This one is 12 feet. So, and this file was uploaded to Canvas when for whichever classes it might be needed in. So I'm just going to, again, Control C and grab this whole lot. And then I'm going to jump over to, hit my Tab button, jump back to my residence, and Control V. So the choice of which graphic scale to use is really just related to the size of the text. So when this thing prints, I want, whoops, just trying to move my text off there. When this thing prints, I want all the text roughly to be the same size. That's a big goal when it comes to construction drawings in particular. So if something is printed at a 1/2-inch scale or a 1/4-inch scale or an 1/8-inch scale, or more specifically, in construction drawings, you could have a big sheet and you might have plans that are at a 1/4 inch scale. Then you could have a section that maybe, or a wall section where we go to 1/2 inch scale, and then we could have a detail of the countertop that's at 1 inch scale. So on the same sheet, you could have numerous different scales occurring. Very common in professional practice. And very importantly, you want all the text to show up at the same height. You can't, even though you're jumping from drawing to drawing and scale to scale, you can't have the heights of the text changing. So there are ways to do this that I'm not going to get into. It's a more detailed lesson that's not more related to construction drawings that I'm not going to get into. So long story short, here is the existing text that is going to be an appropriate scale for when this thing gets through Photoshop. And just by eye, I'm going to go with this big graphic scale. If I had smaller text, relative to the size of the building or something, then I would probably go with a smaller scale. But I'm just going to live with this big guy here. So I'm just going to tuck this little graphic scale in down here at the bottom. Just turn off my ortho. And then in Photoshop, I'm also going to name these drawings. But this guy's going to travel with the drawing. So the getting back to files or images going through Adobe, they're not going to be at a perfect scale. But as long as this guy travels with it and prints on the final board, then especially a knowledgeable designer looking at your work could see that this roughly 3-foot door, probably a 32-inch door, it's probably 3 feet because it's an entry door. I could just kind of glance at this right here, this area right here, and I could get a sense of the size of this door. Again, it's just by eye, but yeah, there it is. You see, it's a 3-foot door. So just having this nearby and not saying that this is printed on my presentation board at 1/8 inch scale or 1/4 inch scale, just having this nearby is enough, and it helps immensely. So I want you, before you move into Photoshop, to open up the graphic scale file that I provide you with, and to put an appropriate sized graphic scale with your image, okay? And also a north arrow is always nice. So I'm going to pick that up, Control C. So if you're existing, and then Control V, I'm not sure exactly where to put this. I might tuck it in the bottom right, or let's put it up the top right here. Here we go. Offhand, I don't recall what the where the north face is here, but if you have that information on site plans for the image that you're working from or the project that you're working on, then please do put in a north arrow to tell us where, so we can figure out where the sun is rising and setting. It's very important to designers. And then RO for rotate, select, and then I could spin it around and get it to face the correct direction. So that's N for north. Okay, so we want to get those two important pieces of information. So I have some text in here right now. I'm just going to leave it for our purposes. But you could also do all the text in Photoshop, and that might be beneficial. There are probably more and nicer fonts in Photoshop, but also once you leave CAD, you don't want to go back. You want to get everything done 100% nice and tidy. Going back to CAD is kind of a pain. If you're in InDesign and you could go back to Photoshop, that's easier. But if you have to go all the way back to CAD, you want to avoid that. So that's just to say that maybe the text size, you're not sure yet because you don't know how big this whole image is going to be when it gets to your presentation board. If you don't know yet, you don't know what size the text should be. So if you do the text in Photoshop rather than CAD, you could easily adjust it in Photoshop. So I would probably save text for Photoshop. That's just my thought on that. Okay, so now I got my additional CAD components that I want, and I'm just going to jump back into PowerPoint. And so we added our graphic scale, and now we're going to print a PDF from CAD. So print a PDF from model space of a single image that you want to move into Photoshop. Okay, generally I create individual files of everything that's going into my board, unless I am certain that they will remain together when I get to my final board. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in here and kind of draw I'm just going to come over here for a short demonstration. So let's just pretend that's my 24 by 36 board that you're doing. And maybe here are my floor plans, and maybe my sections included with that. And then here's a rendering, and here's a sketch, and another sketch. So I want to, when I get to my board, I want to have, on one hand, I want to have maximum flexibility so that I could take these pieces and move them around and arrange them. But that being said, maximum flexibility is a great thing. But these three floor plans, I am not going to change their locations, all right? I got the first floor at the bottom, second floor, roof plan, they're spaced nicely. They are a group, and I am not going to change them, all right? This is the way they should be presented. Ground floor, up, and if you have a section, it probably belongs up here. Ideally, the section would be included and aligned properly. I'm not going to go find the section of this building, but let's just say that that's the section, and it's perfectly aligned. Let's just get on my ortho, and then that's actually the group. Those four ideally would remain together. The floor plans should definitely remain together like that. You do not want to separate them. You have to present them in a nice logical fashion where they read. So I could just see that this wall aligns with that wall, that staircase aligns with that. Over the garage, we have a bedroom right over the bottom right corner. Very easy to read. Again, your big goal in life is to make the people who are reading your work make their chore easy, okay? And sections, same scale, aligned to the plan is ideal. If this thing's perhaps getting too big, you could have the section off to the side. If you could get it aligned, that's ideal. Okay, so this all just goes back to my point here. I do single images unless I am certain they're going to remain together. And them remaining together, moving to Photoshop together, makes my life easier. So I am going to just erase this stuff and erase this stuff. And I'm going to double click my wheel and just it's kind of zoom extents. And so this is everything that's on my file. And this is what I'm going to move to Photoshop. It's ready to go now. Okay. So back to PowerPoint, and this is the dialog box, the plotting dialog box, okay? And everything that I put in dashed boxes are what you need to work with, okay? So I'm going to change my printer to Adobe PDF, which it says here as shown, or there are, depending on your computer, this could vary from computer to computer depending what print options you have. Sometimes if you don't have Adobe, you want to and even in school, Adobe causes problems sometimes. I don't specifically pick Adobe, and I just go for the DWG to PDF. Leave Adobe out of the equation. So if you're coming up with Adobe error messages, your Adobe's not up to date, you don't have Adobe, whatever it is, often you could avoid that. And we'll see what my computer has. I don't even recall at this point. I do most of my work at school. Paper size, what to plot, center the plot, scaling it, portrait or landscape, and a plot style tab. These are the things that we need to look at when we move. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. So here I am, Control P, brings up the printing dialog box. So here, let's see, I have options. Okay, so this is my house printer. I'm not going there. I have an Adobe PDF, which might or might not work. And then I have DWG to PDF. So I'm just going to pick that and keep Adobe right out of the take them right out of the equation. They often cause a headache. So that's that. I'm going to pick my piece of paper. So this is an important consideration. So I aim for, again, I kind of, unfortunately, I'm just going to cancel this for a quick moment and just, actually, let me just undo this. I could just undo this a couple notches and make I had that and this. So this, just to make my point. So this is my 24 by 36 inch board, and these are my plans that are stacked. So when I pick my piece of paper to create this PDF, my goal is to make that image size roughly the size that it's going to appear here. So if this board is 36 inches tall, my plans are roughly half of that at least. Maybe let's call it 24 inches tall. All right. So when I print this thing, I want to aim for this file to be approximately the size that it's going to be on the board. If anything, I want to make it too big. I don't want to make small files and then stretch them. You know, the resolution will be compromised and the pixels will just fall apart. So I want to print this at approximately the size that it's going to show up on my board, all right? If anything, a little bigger. So this also goes to say that it's time to start visualizing your finished product, all right? It's never too early for that, okay? So getting back to, let's just keep this stuff where it is. I might need it again. So again, Control P, here's my box. I could bring up my DWG to PDF. So I said it's about 24 inches tall. So I'm going to look for something to that effect. Let's see, 24 by 18, Arc C. If I click on that and I turn this into portrait, I think this Arc C is a horizontal version. Let's change this here. Now we have 18 by 24 as opposed to 24 by 18. And now we're standing up tall. Portrait. Good. So I got my printer, my paper size. I am going to fit the paper. Again, I'm not working with a specific scale because it's not easy to move through Adobe and keep that scale. I am going to center my plot. I am going to put in my monochrome pen tab. That's what displays my lines generally the nicest. And we're going to have to see if we could make this accessible, that this file could be if you don't have this one on yours, we're going to have to see if we could upload it. We'll have to look into that. And then finally here, we want to come to what we're going to plot. So extents would show everything on this file. I don't want that. Display I don't want, because I don't want this stuff over here on the right side showing. So I'm going to go with window. And I'm just going to draw a window around what I'm plotting. And I have my nice big crosshairs so I could get, right now I'm touching. I'm just going to come out a little bit. Nice, tight picture right there. And that should do it. And then we'll go to preview and take a look. And it's looking pretty good. Everything looks decent. Okay, so I'm just going to exit out of that. And now one more, I'm going to cancel that quickly. One more important piece of information that I did not bring up, and I'm actually just going to jump right into here and just type it out for you because it really is important. And that is the LT scale command. All right. So if I am printing from model space, so I'm going to just tell you first, if I am in paper space, the LT scale should equal 1, and that is not what I am printing. I am printing from model space. And here, the LT scale equals, this is where it gets tricky, it varies, okay? If I were printing an 1/8 inch scale piece from model space, my LT scale would be 96. If I were printing a 1/4 inch piece from 1/4 inch image from CAD, it would be half that. It would be 48, and so on. So now if I'm going to 1/2 inch scale, it would be 24. Okay, this is complex, and I could go over this perhaps in another demonstration, a more detailed one on CAD. Let me just come in here and jump back into CAD and kind of show you this real quickly. It's important. So right here, for instance, this is my roof overhang, and they are dashed lines. They are dashed. They are by layer, and they are dashed, but they're not displaying as dashed, and that's a problem. So it is a problem that LT scale will correct. So it is on 1. So let's just see. I don't think I have these things aligned. This is my paper space here, and there we go. So it's not nicely aligned. But you could see that my dashed lines are displaying correctly in paper space. Okay, that's because the viewport that they're going through right here, my viewport, is telling them my viewport's set to 1/8 inch scale, and it's saying display these dashed lines as if they're 1/8 inch, because I'm an 1/8 inch viewport. So that makes sense. If it was a 1/4 inch viewport, they would look different. If it was a 1/2 inch viewport, they would look different. In model space, it just has no idea. It has no idea what they should look like because there's no viewport to tell it. So you have to tell it. So LT scale, let's pretend it was 1/4 inch I wanted. The magic number is 48, and now I can see my dash lines. Okay. Again, so this is just a display issue here because we're not printing to scale. So LT scale, let's see what 96 looks like. They get bigger. The bigger the scale gets, the bigger the dashes get. I think these look good. So at this point, it's a judgment call because you're just going from, we're going into Adobe. We're not really printing to a scale. So you want the right amount of dash. Your dashes shouldn't, let's just see what happens just out of interest. Let's just plug in 200, some odd number. Now they're getting really big. Then we go back into LT scale. Let's just plug in 12. Now they're so tiny we can't even see them. So we want something right in the middle. 96 for 1/8 inch looks good. All right. So if you're in model space and your dash lines are not displaying correctly, that's what you have to do. Now I'm just going to go back to plotting, Control P. Good news is if I come up here and I go to previous plot, everything populates again. Okay, so I don't have to go through that whole chore again. Preview, and we're looking a lot better. My dash lines are reading nicely. All right, right click, plot. Let us put this where it belongs on my desktop. Nope, not there. My real desktop, not my desktop folder. There is my project 2. And this is going to be a Photoshop PDF. So that's where I'm going with it. Okay. Resident plan, we got a good name, and we got a PDF. Save. And let's see, we should be hopefully opening up, and we're opening up on my other monitor. So let's bring it over so you could see it. Come on. There we are. Let's get that up. Close that. And we could zoom in. And just want to give it a quick visual, make sure it's looking good. And generally, I think it does look good. Line weights look decent, and the dash lines look good. All right, so that's how we create a PDF from CAD. Minimize that. I think we can minimize CAD. And this is all complete now. Okay, we've done all that. This is your reference. And now we are ready to move on to Photoshop. So, in Photoshop, what we're going to be doing, quick overview, and then we'll open up Photoshop. So we're going to open up our PDF. We're going to change our resolution to 220 print quality. Make sure that it is. We will save it as a Photoshop PSD document. This will be our master file for all of our work. We could increase our canvas size. We'll talk about flattening images, which generally I don't think there's much reason to do. And then we will be, we'll do our work, and then we'll be saving as a PNG file with which we will go to InDesign with. Okay, so let's minimize that. Let's bring up Photoshop. Okay, let's open, actually before we open our file, I just brought up a Google search here. I just searched raster image versus vector image. So just very important note. If there's no reason to go to Photoshop, then don't go to Photoshop, all right? CAD and Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, are what you call vector-based programs, okay? And vector-based programs are fantastic. They're ideal for us. What that means is that when you draw something in CAD, and let's say we're drawing a skyscraper, a huge high-rise, and we draw it at 1,000 feet tall. We draw it to the actual size that it is. That creates a vector image, and that image, those lines, are infinitely scalable. You could take that vector image and blow it up to a billboard. You could blow it up to the size of a high-rise, I think literally, and the lines will not fall apart. They will not look bad. All right. But when you have other Photoshop in particular is a raster-based program, and it has raster images in it, and those are pixelated. You've heard of pixels. You know what pixels are? They're little things, the little squares that hold information in Photoshop. When you zoom in Photoshop, that's what you see is right there. So that's pixels. It's been pixelated, and you could only stretch those pixels so far before they fall apart and they look bad. So when we're talking about our resolution, let's just go back into Photoshop for a second. Let's open this guy up. File open. Sometimes these things move a little small anyway, or slowly that is. So here's our image. And we are at 300 pixels per inch, so that is ample. All right, 220 is the minimum. 300 is I guess that's an ideal. And if it's 300, we could actually later, if we had to increase the size of the image, we could trade off some of this. We could reduce this. Like if I put on constrained proportions, no, it's not happening here. Later, when the file's open, we could actually do it. We could actually reduce this to 220, and then this would increase. So it's good to keep it a little on the larger side. So let's just open that up, get that guy opening, and let's just go back to that roster. Okay, so that's okay. So that's open, good. So that 300 or that 220, that's referring to a print quality resolution. Okay, a lot of things in online are just 72. The resolution is just 72 dpi, and that's okay for on screen, but we always work to print quality, which means it has to be 220 or 300, and that's the sharpness kind of these pixels. Back to the reason I started this part of the story is that if you're in CAD and Illustrator, you should, if you could avoid Photoshop, you could and should. If you hatch the walls black and it looks good and you just want a black and white drawing on your board, then just avoid Photoshop. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to talk about floor plans and color and textures. That's why we're going into Photoshop. But if for some reason you decide, I don't want to do textures, I don't want any colors, I just want black and white, no nonsense, simple floor plans, that's fine. And I'll have a different presentation on presentation boards and styles and the feels of them. But again, moral of the story, don't just open up in Photoshop, for the heck of it. It's because you're specifically doing color and texture. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, just keep it a vector image, and the quality, the crispness of the line will be much stronger. Okay? All right, so here we are, and we have our file. Okay. So let's jump back here as a reminder. So we have our resolution that we like, and we're going to save this as a PSD file. So it is, here we are, we have opened up as a PDF. So I'm going to go File, Save As. Actually, let me just cancel that. Let's go to Window first. Let's bring up our layers. Where are my layers? Here they are. Okay. So I do have one layer. Okay, now let's go. File, Save As. Let's see if those layers change. What are we doing here? I want to save. I'm not going to the cloud. I have my folders. Project 2, Photoshop Files, good name, and here we are at the top. Okay, we came in as a PDF, and we are going at the very top, PSD file, all right, a Photoshop file. We're going to save that, maximize the compatibility. And we're down here saving slowly, or not too slowly. We're at 99. We're done. Good. Okay. So now we have a PSD file. Good. Next on the list is to increase the size of the canvas. We can't really see what we are dealing with yet. So I'm actually going to duplicate this layer. Actually, first let's rename. All right. Just the importance of keeping our files and our folders named properly. Keeping our layers in Photoshop, super important. And I'm going to duplicate it as well, just for safekeeping. In case something happens to that one, I'm going to turn one of them off. So you can see when I turn it on and off, it duplicates and it actually gets a little darker. It's just for safekeeping. If accidentally I erase something on this background layer, then I don't have to go back and start from scratch. I just have my I just have a backup copy there. So one thing we could do is we could flatten this thing. Layer, flatten, down at the bottom here. And this compresses it. It's already gonna discard the hidden layers, and I don't want it to do that. And once it flattens it, it's going to appear nice and white and clear and easy to read. And that's all well and good, but I don't want to flatten it. It makes it a smaller file, which could be a good thing in certain circumstances, but it takes away the transparency of these plans. And when we look at boards, we're going to see that sometimes you might lay a background in InDesign, and you want to have a transparent plan laid on top of it. And by not flattening the images, you keep this transparent quality, which is nice. I'm just going to put a white background behind it. If I could find my rectangle tool, which is hidden under my line tool. Yep, rectangle. Let's bring up my color. I got my fill is white. I don't want any stroke. So I should be creating, let's just cancel that. I should be creating a white rectangle. And when I do, it comes in on its own layers. Those are my properties, and there it is. There's my rectangle. It's on top of my background layer. I'll pull it down, and then I can see my image nice and clear. So my rectangle is here for now. Do Control 0, blow this up. Actually, let's blow it up a little more. Let's look a little closer at this thing. So it's here now just so I could see, and I don't have to look at it like this. But then at the end, when I want to make a PNG out of it and move it to InDesign, I could turn this off and I could have a nice transparent image. And then I could create some layered effects with that. Okay, so this is just visual for now. And then the next thing I said here in PowerPoint was that if I wanted to increase the canvas size so that the image is not on the border, it's kind of goofy how this is why we went from CAD. We were at 18 by 24, and now again we just check on our image size. We know we're 300, but we're at again 11 and change by 20. That's because when CAD does it, it brings it right to the edge for some reason. I don't know why. So rather than go to image size, I'm just going to jump into canvas size here, and I'm going to change this. I'm just going to make my nearly 12 inches. I'm just going to add an inch, make it 14, and then I have 21. I'm going to add an inch to each side. My 21 is going to become 23. This ball here, just by keeping that in the middle, it's showing that extra dimension that I'm adding is basically coming left and right and top and bottom. If I move the ball down to here, then all of the dimension in the vertical will go up. Or if I move the ball to here, all of the added dimension will go down. I'm going to keep it right in the middle, and I'm going to add roughly an inch to all sides. And there we go. Now my rectangle's a little small, which is fine. That's not a problem. Because I'm going to just, again, that's just for looking at it. Okay, so now I have a little more elbow room around the corners there. Okay, so that is that. We've increased the canvas size. Flattening, again, I'm not going to do that, and that will allow me to keep a transparent background later. And then when we're done with our work, we're going to save this thing as a PNG file, and that's what we're going to move into InDesign. All right, I'm not going to, maybe I'll just drop a little bit of color in it right now just to demonstrate quickly. But at the end of this presentation, I'm going to look at some floor plans and talk more in depth about what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. Okay, but right now, suffice to say that I'll just drop in just a quick demo, and then we're going to save this finally as a PNG, and that's what's moved into Photoshop. All right. So here we are. We're looking good. Let's just Control+ to move into here. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. We have a background copy. Good. So now let's create a new layer. Create a new group. Nope. This is our new layer. There we go. Double click, and let's call this flooring. Actually, I'm going to be more specific. I think I'm going to say bathroom floor. On one hand, we don't want to have a million layers, but if we oversimplify, then we lose the ability to affect them differently. And if we're doing patterns in different colors, maybe light colors in some, dark colors in the other, we do want to have some capacity to change the different layers. So now let's paint this bathroom floor here, just as an example. So We know that we have to be on our background layer because that is where our so I'm going to go over here. That is where our line work is. Okay, so I'm going to get on my magic wand. The black lines that we are working with are on that background layer, so this is where I have to be. Let's see, one click and pretty good. Okay, so it worked its way around the letters. It included this, I guess that was a shelf, I'm not sure. And one thing we want to know is that when we're doing floors in particular, I'm going to hold the shift key and I'm going to add to this selection. I just click that door. Sometimes students make the mistake of thinking that this space inside the door belongs to the master bedroom. It doesn't. Just like your real house, once you step through that threshold, this is your tile floor, and so does this one. That belongs to it, and this one as well, all the way around the toilet. So all of that is the floor, nicely captured. All right, I'm not going to go into the shower. That would be a different floor. Now I'm going to move on to this layer. I am going to pick a color. Let's bring up our color pick. And I'm going to, maybe let's come into here and just pick something kind of creamy and neutral. Say OK. I am going to get my paint bucket, which is here, and I will drop it in. And there we go. Nice. And then Control D to deselect. And we see that we missed a couple letters in there, so we'd have to go back in and select those. I am not going to do that right now. Okay. And then, of course, we file save regularly. It's time consuming, but it's very important. And there's our bathroom floor on its own layer to be adjusted. And we're on that layer. We could play with the opacity, tone it down a little bit if it's too strong, etc. Okay. So we've saved our PSD file, and now to prepare it for moving into InDesign, we are going to save everything on our computer. You don't need to ask me that anymore. Photoshop files. And so our PSD file, again, that's our master format where we do all our work. It has all our layers. It's going to be a very big file inevitably. And when we go into InDesign, all we need are PNGs right here. All right. And this is just going to be resident plan. That's same name. And I'm just going to do an underscore and 1. This is version 1. Maybe I'll do 1.1. 1.1. All right, save. Okay, and we're saving. And with PNGs, you got to know we're still in our PSD file there, and we still have all of our layers. Everything's still there. Our PNG file has been created. And that is in our, nope, not our online photos. That is in our Photoshop files. Let's go to details and stretch it out a little bit so we can see what's going on here. Let's maximize. And we could see a PNG file has been created. There it is. And there we could see our little hint of a beige floor. Okay. So that is the Photoshop procedure. We've worked through all of this, and then I think we're pretty much ready to move on to InDesign. So I'm going to jump right into that. Okay, this slide here was just showing the import PDF. So I had a 220 there, but we kept it at 3, and we didn't. That was just the size that came in, so that doesn't really show us anything new. Now let's jump into InDesign and start a new document. Okay. So we are going to let's just do it and see what happens here. InDesign. Okay. File. Drop a box. There we go. A little laggy. New document. All right, while that's opening, we could come here and just talk about what we're going to be seeing. We're going to be opening up a new document dialog box. We are starting new, yes, number of pages to be determined, and we could always add everything that we're doing in InDesign. We can adjust later, so we're not making any permanent decisions right now, really. Facing pages, that means if we're working in a spread, basically. So we want facing pages for portfolios, but we don't want them if we're doing individual presentation boards. All right, page size. That's your call depending on your project. Orientation, that's portrait or landscape. Again, your choice. Units should be in inches. Okay, so that's that. Let's bring over my my new document opened on my other monitor. Let's just decrease the size of this so we could see it. All right, here we are in our new document dialog box. So let us change our picas, which is a graphic design unit, to inches. And we are going to work on a presentation board. That's what we've been saying. We'll do a portrait. So this will be 24 wide by 36 high. There's our portrait. I don't want facing pages. And I'm just going to work with one page now. Okay? So that's all good up top here. And then down here, this is all gutters and margins. Gutters are when you have columns. We're not working with columns. In a portfolio, you could work with columns, and this could be very helpful and important. Margins are not so important here, actually. They are kind of guides, but it's very, very important to keep in mind that your margins are kind of arbitrary when you pick them in InDesign. What they should really be based on is the actual printer that you're printing from. So if we're in school and we're in our lab, we would have to go to the lab and speak to the lab tech and ask them, how big do our borders print? Maybe if you have a high-end, professional, high-grade printer, maybe you could do a full bleed where the ink just runs right off the page. We can't. Most printers don't do that, and ours does not at the school. I think it's a 1/4 inch margin there, so I think it's a 1/4 inch that remains, a 1/4 inch white border that does not print from our printer. So that's what I'm going to set that to. But again, it's the printer that dictates that. It's not just your decision. Okay, you have to know the output from the printer. All right, so this all looks good to me. I'm just going to move it. Yeah, so I just couldn't see the bottom of that box on that monitor, my smaller laptop. So this is all good. Let us create. And this should be coming up momentarily. All right, I'm just going to refer back to here. So we did all of that. And then when we get into the document, we want to right-click on the rulers and make sure that we're in inches. And then we could also go to Document Setup to make any changes thereafter. So, okay, we are coming ever so slowly. Here we are. Good. Okay. So, yep, there we just flipped. It came up in picas. I just saw those numbers flip up there. So this is in 24 inches, and we could just get on that ruler, and we could right-click, and we see it's on inches. For some reason, you could actually change your top ruler and your side ruler to be in different increments. I don't know why you would do that. But so here we're in 24 inches, and down here it looks like right about 36. So that's just what we expect. Good. And then the other important point that I pointed out here in PowerPoint was that after creating the document, File, Document Setup. So if we want to make changes, we just go to File, Document Setup. So File and Document Setup. And here are the decisions that we just made. Also important, yes, we are on a print intent. We are not going to web-based printing. All right, we're not on face pages. Size could be changed. Margins could be changed. Okay, so all that's accessible. All right. All right, back to PowerPoint. So we've taken care of everything on this slide. All right, moving along. We're getting there. Import images. We're going to go File and Place. All right, let's just do that, and then we'll talk about this text. Let's just get an image in there. File. Place. Going to our desktop. We want to get to our actual desktop. And then we go into our Project 2 case study, and we have our Photoshop files here ready to go. Might want to look at these in a list or detail form. So we have our initial PDF that came out of CAD. We have our master. Let's actually look at these in details, better yet. Our PDF, we can see right there from CAD, our Adobe Photoshop document right here. When we go return to work, we will go back there. And right now we have our PNG compressed file. You can see the difference in the image in the file sizes right there. So we've compressed our master PSD document down to a compressed PNG. Let's double click, and here it comes. And very good. So we have a 24 by 36 board, and we had a roughly 18 by 24 inch, little smaller than that at that point, file being inserted. Control plus, and wow, that looks horrible. So let's go to View, Display Performance, and it is on typical. Let's move that to high and cross our fingers, and much better. Much better. Okay. So if you're working with a big portfolio with multiple pages, lots of images, and you're trying to flip from page to page, in that case, you probably want your, or you might want, if it's lagging and moving slowly, you can move your display performance to typical. But for our purposes, we want to be in high, just so it's nice and crisp, and we're not scared that our image is pixelated and fallen apart. But this looks good. And so we have our Control 0, just like Photoshop. Control 0 is our zoom extents, Control plus, Control minus. Okay? All right. Good. There we are. And also W is a good key command. That's what shows, brings our boxes and our rulers. I'm not going to get into an in-depth InDesign tutorial here. I just want to talk more about the workflow. We could come up here and we could get our guides, and then W cleans the board and W brings back our guides. Okay? All right, let's get back here now. All right, so by default, placed images are linked, not embedded. Okay, so let's bring up our links. So we have our properties, we have our pages, that's our single page. We know we could right-click on that page. We could duplicate pages. So now we have 2 pages of the same. So when you're working and you're really liking what you're doing and you're afraid to change things, but you know you have to push on to try new, bigger, and better ideas perhaps, then you just duplicate what you had. So most students that come up with real strong quality boards, by the time after working on this board for 3 or 4 weeks, they'll probably have 5 or 6 different versions, each incrementally changing from the others. So that's very easy here in Pages. And let us go to Window. So just like Photoshop, InDesign has all of our important work panels right here under Window. And let us bring up Links. And here it comes. And there is our residence. That is our image right here that is linked to this file. All right. So going back to the very beginning of this long presentation, just like Photoshop, when you put an image into Photoshop, it is linked, and you cannot move it, and you do not change the names. That's why we have our folder set up real nice. Okay. So if that file here, if that got moved, changed, the name got changed, if something happened, that link will break, and you will not. And then you'll see a little exclamation mark or a little warning sign up in the corner of it here. And that's telling you that there's a problem. Broken links are a problem. In AutoCAD, the image is just gone, and it's clearly just a big problem. Here, kind of unfortunately, you're just going to get a little exclamation mark. You're still going to see something here, but it's not truly connected. It might not be up to date, and even worse, the quality of its resolution is not the same. It's called a proxy, just a stand-in, and that's a big problem. It will look okay on the screen, but when you go to print it, it means you had a broken link and it's not going to appear correctly. Okay, so again, don't move those files around. Make sure that we don't see any exclamations or warnings here. Okay, so everything's linked up properly here. Let's just go back here. All right. So things stay in their original folders. Location. So here, there's our exclamation mark. So there's a broken link and a question mark there. So that's indicating that there's a problem. Okay, and then it has to be relinked. But again, just keep your folders straight. Don't move things around, and this should not be a problem. Okay. Linked images should be updated automatically, but again, keep an eye on this, especially before you finalize your board and go to print. Make sure all your links are up to date. Okay. Working in a classroom situation, so I went over this at the beginning with CAD. A classroom situation could be especially problematic if you're carrying around your InDesign file on your jump drive, but maybe things are on your desktop. Then you're just asking for broken links. Okay, Don't do that. You could also embed things. They don't update automatically, so it's not a separate file. So it's kind of a little more foolproof, but the updating is unfortunate, and you also create a much bigger file. So again, I would just go with the linking and make sure, keep an eye on your links and make sure that they are updating properly. Okay? All right, moving on. So these last two slides, I'm just going to touch on the basics of InDesign. Okay? So resizing images. Drag the node from the corner of the image frame, holding Shift to restrain the proportions. Then we'll right-click, go to Fitting, and fit content proportionally. Okay? So let's do that. So here we are. Actually, let me go back. There's one more important thing I want to mention here. When moving an image, do not move the circle on the inside of the image frame. This moves the image but not the frame. Okay, we talked about that point. All right, so right here, when moving an image, do not move the circle inside the image frame. Image but not the frame, okay? So what that means is right here, we have a blue box around this. I see a circle in the middle. You can see that I have my pointer right there. And when I click on this thing, I could just click with the left and I could move. Also to note, if I click and move real quick, you see how I can't see anything in that box? That box is empty. If I click, holding for 2 or 3 seconds, and now if I move it, I could actually see the image. That might or might not be helpful. If it is, just give a little pause before you move it. All right. Now this is the circle that causes problems. I guess if you're maybe a graphic designer and deeper into InDesign than I am, you could grab this circle, and now all of a sudden you see that brown box has been separated from the blue box, and now my image has left its frame. So you have a image box, and then you have an object box. And the two could be separated quite easily. There's no reason for us to separate them. I don't know why anyone would. There's probably a good reason out there. I'd like to think there is, but I don't know what it is. Just stay away from that circle. That's kind of the moral of that story. I'm just going to Control Z to go backwards, okay? And you could also cause that same problem just by double-clicking on this box real quickly. You see how it went blue box, double-click, and now we have a brown box. And we, again, cause that same problem. Control Z to bring it back, okay? So click once, avoid the circle, and move, just like that, okay? And then resizing. So here, as we move around the perimeter, we don't want to stretch things. We don't want to stretch it in one direction or stretch it in that direction. As we move around the perimeter near these nodes, we could see some different things. So right there, we could see that's the stretch option. That's the rotate option. I'm not going to rotate this. It came in just the way we wanted it. I'm going to get on right there for the stretch option. Left click, hold, and as you see, you could the proportions of this box are not restrained. I could even invert it. Wow. Definitely don't want to do that, and I don't want to mess up the proportions of this box. So at this point, I'm going to hold the Shift down, and I'm just going to reduce. Again, we don't want to increase. You know, we planned ahead. So this box should not be increased. I mean, you could increase it a little bit if you have to, but you start increasing this thing too much, those pixels are going to fall apart and it's not going to look good. So we planned accordingly in CAD and Photoshop in preparation for this, and it's coming in at about the size we want it. From there, you could cheat it up a little bit without problem, I suspect, but you could definitely cheat it down, and that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm just decreasing the size, holding the Shift, let go of the mouse, let go of the Shift, and now I have to right-click, fitting, fit content proportionally, and it adjusts. So one more time, I'm just going to bring it up a little bit. Click and hold with the left, Shift, keep the proportions, let go of the mouse, let go of the Shift, right-click. Whenever you right-click in any program, you bring up that context menu. This is all the stuff that I could do relative to the image that I've selected, fitting, fit content proportionally, and it jumps up to where it should be. Okay, so that's how we change the size. All right. So we have done everything on this slide, and now we are on the final slide. And So we inserted our image, yes. It's been placed. We resize. We hold the shift, yes. We talked about the difference between the frame and the object, good. Right click, fit content to frame, yes. And then there's also in that context menu the right click, arrange, send to front or back, right? This is just like in CAD. There's a draw order, which is also a very important. I'm just going to bring that up, actually. It's really very important. Let me just bring that up. I should have brought this up in the CAD portion of this, but never too late. Let's open up CAD real quickly. And I do not have my image. Is my image elsewhere? No, I lost my image, but that's okay. It's for our purposes. So sometimes when people are tracing those images, going back to the first portion of this whole presentation, now I'm just to make my demonstration, I'm just going to jump to a different layer, 0, and I'm going to draw a line right on top of this. And you can see now I have a white line on top of my magenta box. My box is below, and my white line is on top. And this happens, the important reason I'm bringing this up is that sometimes when people are tracing their images, they're drawing lines, but they're disappearing underneath the image. Okay? And just like this green box is underneath that white line. So in that case, all you have to do is select this guy, DR, for draw order. Or no, that's drawing, I'm sorry. Draw order, yeah, I'm right, there it is, draw order, I just saw it. And then we could take that object, I think I selected the green box, so I'm going to say move to the front. And there it is. So now the green box has come to the top. And my white line is still back there, it's just behind that object. Same thing could happen with images. So if you're drawing lines on top of an image and they're disappearing, that's the problem. Then just select the image, draw order, and push the image to the back. Okay? And the same thing happens here. And we want it to happen here. So for instance, let's open up our color box. Let's pick a color. Okay, we got that. And let us draw a rectangle. So here's my rectangle. And there it is. Very good. And then I can right click on my rectangle. I'm sorry, select my rectangle, right click on it, and go to arrange, which is here. And then I could say send to the back. And then there is my rectangle has moved to the back. So again, the ordering. So all PowerPoint has this. A lot of file type or image type programs have this, where we could push images forward and backwards. Okay. And I'm going to save this actually. Well, no, it's actually no. Well, you should save it. Obviously, I'm not going to save mine. Save as, and then put it where it belongs. And that's in its InDesign. Here I have set up my InDesign presentation board. That's where that would go. Okay, so let's just check on PowerPoint, make sure we hit the important images or the important topics. So this is the last one I'm going into, and then we are done. So if an image needs to be adjusted in Photoshop after it's been placed in InDesign, that's a typo, InDesign, what are we going to do? All right, this is super important, okay? So we're going to go back to our Photoshop file. We're going to make some changes. We're going to resave it as a PNG, and then we're just going to insert it again, all right? And we'll basically be updating that link. The reason why this is so important is that it is so easy to do that there's no reason to wait on this process, okay? My floor plans are obviously very far from done. But that doesn't mean that I have to wait to start this board, okay? The more time that you work on these presentation boards, the better. And as rough as this is, as uncolored and, not pretty, it still needs a lot more work. I could still drop it on the board and start to think about the board. Visualizing the end result will help you make the proper decisions while you're in Photoshop, okay? So I'm going to jump back into Photoshop, and let's go back to our bathroom floor, for instance. And now let's just jump back to our magic wand and select. I don't know why that didn't select everything. So I'm just holding shift and I'm selecting the rest of it. I thought with bathroom floor on that layer it would have just grabbed the whole thing, but for some reason it was still following the background. Don't know why that is. That's kind of strange, but nonetheless, let's say we're not happy with this tan color. So let us get to our colors. Here they are. And let's say we want a yellow floor instead. Paint bucket, drop. And now we have updated our PSD file. Control D to deselect. And now we have our new improved piece. We're going to go File, Save As. It stopped showing me this. I always want to go to my computer. And we are back in my Photoshop files, the correct place to be. And back to PNGs. This is our original file. I could just select it and overwrite it. Let's do that. Why don't we just do that and hope that it updates. Let's see if it updates the link. Save, replace, yes. Okay. Saving. Good. And done. Come back here. And our file has an exclamation mark next to it right there. Let's right click and let's relink. I don't know why we came here. Let me just back up one more time. Right click, relink all instincts, edit. Now, so when we come here, it's basically it's making us do the work. So we're going desktop, we're coming back here, and we're coming back to my Photoshop files, and then double click on that guy, and the relink is happening, and it just turned yellow. So it did not relink automatically for some reason. So be it. We will have to do the relink ourselves. If I figure out why the relink didn't happen, I will let you know, but this is, so that's one reason we keep the links open and we keep an eye on them. So that was easy enough though, okay? Let's do it one more time actually. One more time. Let's go back to Photoshop. We're going to keep that. We're going to say we're happy with our new yellow. Control 0. Now let's turn off this rectangle, however. Now let's go with our this background. Okay? Let's go with the transparent. And now this time I'm going to do something a little different, however. I'm going to go File, Save As. I want a PNG again. There's my PNG. And this time I'm going to select that so that it populates with the text. But this time I'm going to just experiment with a transparent background. So I don't want to get rid of that first one. I'm just going to turn this to version 1.2. I'm going to hit Save. Okay. Saving. Good. Okay, so now I have in my folder, in my Photoshop files, I have version 1. We can see here, white background, yellow. In our little display here, it looks the same, but it's not, in fact. Okay, so I'm going to come here, and being that I changed the name to 1.2, this there's no exclamation mark here. There's no relinking problem actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this guy, and I'm just going to come back to File, Place, and I'm going to select my second version. Give it a double click, and the background has just disappeared, and my link is now to 1.2. Okay, and then when I zoom in, I could see quite nicely my dark blue, which isn't particularly nice. It's very contrasty and pretty ugly in my opinion. But anyway, the white rectangle dropped out, and now I have a transparent background, and my blue rectangle, which is kind of harsh and ugly, imagine it as something more, gentle and pretty, perhaps perhaps part of the background from your rendering, perhaps maybe is kind of coming underneath these plans. So that is the transparency, and that is the relinking issues. Okay, and that is what that will look like. And then finally, when packaging this ID file for submitting or transmitting, so if you're uploading it to Canvas to show, or you're sending it off to a printer, it has to become a PDF. All right, we're not going to send out this big InDesign file. So if we do a save as, that is not the way to go. We do not have a PDF option here. So let us go to export could be an option, and also printing. So we could export a PDF for printing right there. And we could also probably just go to print as well, and we could print PDFs. Let's bring up that printing dialog box, take a look at it. And here it is. So we are not going to print this on my home computer, but we will go to Adobe PDF right there. And then we could print a PDF, which this looks like it might be printing a small one. So let's go to Setup. See what Setup is showing us. Preferences. Paper. Layout. Advanced. Letter. Okay, so that was, I'm going to do that one more time. I don't know. I can't say that I know for certain that this is always the same for every computer. I would kind of guess that it is. I just kind of know from experience that when I glance down here, that little rectangle is suspicious. That looks like a problem. And I don't see any page. Let's see if I come right here, perhaps setup. There it is. Okay, so that's a less. So I took the scenic route from here and I went into setup. I could just jump into setup right there. Here are all our options. And I would, let's see if we go to custom. Yeah, there we go. That's the easiest way. We know I was just pondering all these different sizes that I don't have committed to memory. Each one is a size. One of these is 18 by 24, an ARC or an ISO. Something is, I don't recall. I don't have them all committed to memory. I just go to custom and it jumped right to 24 by 36. I don't see that rectangle anymore. So then I could just go right ahead and print that PDF, which I'm not going to do right now. Okay, a lot of information, but very important information. All right, this workflow is super important to get those results that we need. All right. So finally, I'm just going to move on and talk about rendered floor plans and some nice things that we could do with them. Okay, the final portion of this video is I just want to review rendered floor plans. All right, that's where we are. So I'm going to just bring over Google first before I look at a couple that I do like. So when we Google rendered architectural floor plans, in my opinion, we see a lot of things that really don't look so good. I find a lot of these floor plans, and I don't know if architects are creating these, and no offense to the real estate business, but I think a lot of or builders perhaps that are selling houses, I think a lot of these floor plans are created to try to sell house models, and I find a lot of them to be very overworked and very hard to read. In general, when we look at a floor plan, in my opinion, we should see the first and foremost thing we should see are where are the walls, where are the windows, and where are the doors. All right, that's primary, is understanding the layout of what we're looking at. And some of these are so filled with kind of texture, like dark textures, busy textures. This one has, the walls are particularly dark and bold, so they do kind of jump out nicely. The windows are just vanishing for me into these floors, though. So I don't like that. I don't like when things blur together. And if I just glance at it, the red bed is jumping out at me. The blue seats are jumping out at me. If I wanted to walk through here, the door has vanished inside of this. So that's definitely not good. The doors are very, very important. The actual building is what we're selling. It's important. It's very good to furnish, and for our case studies and in general, you should do some furnishing. You don't have to make it so crazy that it's like we could live in it, but you do want to show that bedrooms are furnishable. Like here, it's good to know that if you want a double bed in here, it's going to be pushed up against the window. That stinks. And here too, like, I don't know why they would push that up against the window. I guess maybe if it's just a single person living in there, that's okay. But in general, this is dark. Like if I walk through here and now I'm in this kind of little waiting area, this carpet feels like an object to me. It doesn't feel like something I could just walk over. It's like, because of its color and its boldness, it feels like an actual three-dimensional object to me. This one too, like when I just put it up on the screen, how quickly can you locate all these interior walls? And where are the doors? I see hints of white lines there. This floor is just way too busy for me. Like what? So here I see a bathroom. I guess I could see a hint of a door there. This looks like it's open. Like that window is just completely vanished. So I think there are a lot of bad floor plans out there. To kind of cut to the chase. I think I could see the walls nicely here. I could see the windows. The deck is as bold as inside. Maybe it could be toned down a little bit. You know, I can't read the difference between the table and the chairs that are underneath it. You know, this area, this all looks nice and clean to me. I can see that clearly. But again, when I glance at this thing, like what you know, and you glance at it, what do you see first? I see a big car that I don't care about. It could be so much lighter. I'm seeing this pattern, which is a busy rug. So it's just like the wrong things are jumping out. The priority is the building, and then just show us that it's furnishable, give us a hint of the materials, and that's enough. So don't overwork things in Photoshop. That's kind of the moral of the story on that one. So I picked a couple that I thought were decent. All right. I think the colors are nice and neutral here. They kind of subside. They kind of go back to the background nicely. I think the floor is very nice in particular. The doors are goofy. I would never draw doors like this, but we've covered that in CAD. So we come in here. I don't know which way is up or down on that. That's a little goofy to me. But it's at least neutral. It's at least neutral. That's the best thing that it has going for it. Lacking windows. I don't know. We have a lot of rooms without windows for some reason, but that's kind of. But I just don't like the way that the windows are drawn. I don't like this dark line kind of that consumes that window. So my favorite part is the floor, basically. Little pillows on the couch, maybe a little more information than we need. You know, it's not. I don't know. It's realism is not the goal. It's not the goal. The goal is clarity, explaining the building in its most clear manner. I glance at this. I could see the walls nicely. I like the color. The color is much quieter. It's not competing. I like how things that are built in, like kitchen cabinets, are all kept white. I'm not sure what I'm looking at right there. But I can see the doors because these carpets, whatever the texture is so light and kind of delicate that I could see these doors nicely. I really like that. Windows are okay, a little blurry perhaps, but this one's much better, much better. I don't know if we need green on the outside. This kind of row, this like army of plants kind of marching around. It's kind of a little goofy perhaps. But the little splashes of color, I do like the violets. I like the yellow out here. The browns are nice. So this one's generally well done. And this we've talked about this, or I talk about this occasionally, is like hatching. Like it's not necessary to hatch an entire floor. Sometimes it gets a little too busy if it's fully hatched. So just this little hint, top left, bottom right, and then visually we understand. You know, it's a tile floor. Sometimes putting in too much tile it doesn't help. Too much hatch, too much pattern, too much texture. It could quite easily become too much of a good thing. So, not to overwork is the moral of the story. So here, this is a little fuzzy. I want to talk. I'm just going to jump into YouTube quickly here. Where's YouTube? Here we are. Here's our floor plans. And here's YouTube. So a former colleague of ours from Community College of Philly, Michael Tweed, a gentleman that I had the privilege of working with, a young man who's very, very talented. If you go to YouTube and you put in Michael Tweed Architect, he has over 300 videos here. I come to videos and they're just tons of videos. If you come to playlists, they're organized. And I just wanted to point out a couple. Basically, everything related to CAD, SketchUp, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and some more are in here. And some of them, let's actually just go back to videos first, then we'll jump back to playlists just to show you they range. There's just some are as short as 3 or 4 minutes. Others, he generally keeps them pretty short. I go with really long videos that are broken up and given a table of contents, but his are brief, from 3 to 10 minutes basically, but simple, just quick things on, a tree in Photoshop, a sky in Photoshop, a stone path, so there's tons of tiny little details, bricks in Illustrator. So tons of stuff that you should definitely look through. Let's just jump back into playlists quickly. And so Photoshop and 3D for architects, textures, effects, and materials, rendering in Revit. Yeah, so Revit's in there as well. SketchUp terrains, a lot on that. Here, this is one that I wanted to point out for our advanced presentation techniques class, which we have working with InDesign to create portfolios. So here there are 14 videos just on that. In our first presentation class, a lot of the things that I've been talking about, again, that workflow from CAD to Photoshop to InDesign is also covered. So I'm not going to turn on any of these videos, but I highly encourage you to check it out. It's a great extensive resource that Michael has shared with everybody. So great thing there. And this is one of his, so to get back more specifically to the floor plans, this is one of his versions. It's very fuzzy because I just captured it off of YouTube, but very basic, just a beige backdrop for the flooring. The walls are pochade, nice and dark. That can be done in Photoshop or in CAD. And then once you drop the colors into Photoshop, you could just easily subtract out or work around in the first place, work around things that are built in, kitchen cabinets, kitchen island, vanities in the bathroom, bathtub. It's nice that those have been taken away, so they kind of pop out a little more, and we understand what the permanent fixtures are. And then the furniture is kind of left just to kind of show that these spaces are in fact furnishable, but there's no need to show us the color of the bedspread. It's overkill and it's distracting. So, the beiges here are kind of boring, but neutral, and depending again on the finished board, if this is going onto a presentation board, there will be three-dimensional models on it, perhaps, or could be sketches incorporated. So color and exciting elements might be elsewhere, and the floor plans could kind of take a second role. A nice three-dimensional rendering shows us the whole building, and then the floor plan is just there to kind of fill in information, and it should not compete with a nice, colorful, bright rendering, in my opinion. All right, 2 more, and we're going to wrap this up. So here's a before and after, and I don't like the direction it's going. I don't care for this at all. This white, I wish there was there should be a color. Not that this thing needs more color or more clashes or more elements competing, but this feels undone to me. All this white, and it's just in such great contrast to here, where it's just busy. And then we're trying to depict the sunlight coming in the windows. I think it's overkill. Granite here on the table, on the countertops, just everything busy and competing. I don't know, we have flowers and placemats. Just way too much. This, I like the black. I think we should just make these walls black. This hatch, beige, with the cross, with the CAD-like hatch on it, not helping at all, really. Black walls are just really the best. They just kind of show us, again, priority, show us where the walls are, just make them dark. So this is overworked and going in the wrong direction, in my opinion. Finally, one last one. This is one of my favorites that I found in Google. Just glance at it. I could see all the walls. Doors, the grays are maybe a little too dark. The doors are so delicate, they're almost disappearing. They're hanging in there, but they're okay. We have a texture here on the porch, second, third, fourth. I see, that's about all I see is about 4 textures. I could do without this rug. And this rug kind of overworked in my opinion. But the 4 primary textures on the floor I think are working pretty well. Maybe this is a little dark. These guys are kind of disappearing into it. But again, a little texture's been added to these tabletops. But again, it's white, so I think that really helps. Perhaps the rug could have been brought into the closets as it probably would be in real life. But overall, this is good. It has some life in it. The cars are okay. They're not screaming for attention. So walls, doors, windows are decent as well. I could clearly see where these windows are. So overall, out of the group the group that I'm showing from Google, this is the best. Again, I will have another presentation on our former students, their proper, well done presentation boards, and we'll look at some other options for this. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of direction for starting. Okay, thank you so much. Good luck.